know. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari and Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Tadavijaka Ashtotar that Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Tadavijaka Ashtotar that Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On its 30th day of September, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And this morning we're reading from Canto 7, Science of God, Chapter 13, The Behavior of a Perfect Person, text number 28. Iti etad atmanaha svartam santam vismritya vai puman vichitram asati dvaite goram apnoti sangsritim itchetaratmanak svartam santam vismritya vaipuman vichitram asati dvaite goram apnoti sangsritim itchetaratmanak svartam santam vismritya vaipuman vichitram asati dvaite goram apnoti sangsritim itchetaratmanak svartam santam vismritya vaipuman vichitram asati dvaite goram apnoti sangsritim itchetaratmanak svartam santam vismritya vaipuman vichitram asati dvaite goram apnoti sangsritim itchetaratmanak svartam santam vismritya vaipuman vichitram asati dvaite goram apnoti sangsritim itchetaratmanak svartam santam vismritya vaipuman vichitram asati dvaite goram apnoti sangsritim itchetaratmanak svartam santam vismritya vaipuman vichitram asati dvaitam goram apnoti sangsritim. Anyone online? Looks like Vijay is boycotting my classes. Word by words. Iti, in this way. Etat, a person materially conditioned. Atmanaha, of his self. Swaartam, own interest. Santam, existing within oneself. Vismritya, forgetting. Vai, indeed. Puman, the living entity. Vichitram, attractive false varieties. Asati, in the material world. Dvaite, other than the self. Goram, very fearful, due to continuous acceptance of birth and death. Apnoti, one becomes entangled. Sangsritim, in material existence. Chad, close those curtains. Thank you. Translation. So the perfect persons continue to speak to Prahlad Maharaj. In this way, the conditioned soul living within the body forgets his self-interest because he identifies himself with the body. Because the body is material, his natural tendency is to be attracted by the varieties of the material world. Thus, the living entity suffers the miseries of material existence. Please repeat. In this way, the conditioned soul living within the body forgets his self-interest Because he identifies himself with the body. Because the body is material, his natural tendency is to be attracted by the varieties of the material world. Thus the living entity suffers. That won't work. Thus the living entity suffers the miseries of material existence. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Everyone is trying to be happy because, as explained in the previous verse, Sukham asyatmano rupam sarveho paritis tanuhu. When the living entity is in his original spiritual form, he is happy by nature. There is no question of miseries for the spiritual being. As Krishna is always happy, the living entities, who are his parts and parcels, are also happy by nature. But because of being put within this material world and forgetting their eternal relationship with Krishna, they have forgotten their real nature. Because every one of us is a part of Krishna, we have a very affectionate relationship with him. But because we have forgotten our identities and are considering the body to be the self, we are afflicted by all the troubles of birth, death, old age, and disease. This misconception in materialistic life continues unless and until one comes to understand his relationship with Krishna. The happiness sought by the conditioned soul is certainly only illusion, as explained in the next verse. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, the Python man is continuing to describe and explain his philosophy and his understanding to Prahlad Maharaj and also to us. And this is a central theme in the Bhagavatam. I was thinking of all the places that similar philosophical points are brought up. And one of Prabhupada's favorites to quote is from the first canto, 5th chapter, where Narada Muni is preaching to Vyasadeva and inspiring him to write the Bhagavatam. Remember, Vyasadeva was troubled, even though he'd written all the Puranas, he'd written the Mahabharata, he'd written the Vedas, and the Itihasas, and all these things. And the Mahabharata contains the Bhagavad Gita. But still, he was dissatisfied. And so Narada Muni came to him, and I think it was Vyasadeva himself who guessed why, but Narada confirmed it. Yes, because he has not written a Shastra that wholly and solely deals with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his devotees, and the process of devotional service. And so he inspired, Narada Muni inspired Vyasadeva to meditate. He said, you go and meditate on Krishna, and everything will be revealed to you. And that's there, I think, in the 7th chapter in the 1st canto. But in that explanation to Vyasadeva why he's dissatisfied, there's a lot of similar things like this. But one of the things that comes to mind, Prabhupada would always quote this verse, these two verses actually. Tyakva swadharmam chadanam bhajang hare bhajanna pakvo tapateta todadi yatra kavava buddha mushrikim karvarta apto abhajatam swadharmataha. So if someone gives up his role in the Manashram Dharma, tyakva swadharmam, and takes shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, chadanam bhajang hare, bhajana pakvo, but his bhajan is uncooked. Namely, it's incomplete. He deviates somehow and falls away. Where is there any loss? We know from Bhagavad Gita in two places, 6th canto and 6th chapter and 2nd chapter. Neha bhikamanashosti pratyavayona vidyate. There's no loss or diminution in this effort. Unlike anything material, where there's total loss and total diminution. When you leave the body, everything, all your treasures and your relationships and everything, all your pride and prejudice is all taken away. But because whatever assets you have in spiritual life, it may be just a little bit, that stays with you, and in the next year life you're able to take it up again. So, there's no loss and diminution. So the same thing is there in this verse, Chaktva Dharma. And if someone gives up his role in the Varnashram Dharma, and he takes up Krishna consciousness, but falls away due to worldly mindedness, where is there loss, any diminution? But where is there any gain for someone who very nicely fulfills his role in the Varnashram Dharma, but doesn't do any bhajan? Whatever he may get in this life is completely lost. And according to his karma, he's reborn again, hopefully as a human being, but not necessarily. And therefore, next verse, and the next verse really strikes it home, it makes the case. Tasyaiva heto prayate kovido nalabhyate yad brahmatama parayata talabhyate dukkavadanyatak sukham kalena sarvata gabhira rangasa. So this says, therefore, one should strive for what we have not been able to achieve by going up and down in different universes. Tasyaiva heto, a goal. Prayate means strive as hard as we can. Those who are intelligent, kovida. That which nalabhyate, Brahma, up and down, wandering up and down the universe and different species of life, which is Krishna, which is our original nature. And then he gives this statement, which is repeated by Prahlāda in his teachings to his friends. Nalabhyate brahmanama paya talabhyate dukkavadanyatak sukham kalena sarvata gabhira rangasa. Because your happiness and distress in this life is already programmed in. You can try as hard as you want, and you may even become a billionaire, but the happiness may not be there. Your wife will leave you, which happened to one billionaire. I'm not going to name any names. You know, he was playing around because he's got billions of dollars. He can do it. And she found out, and she divorced him, and she got half of his treasure. You know, so he must have been pretty depressed at that point. And it's just the nature of the material world is that no matter what you have, these dualities are there. You know, climate change is there. Oh, well, that's all right. We got billions of dollars. We're going to build a tunnel, you know, in some place, and we'll put everything there. We'll have everything. It's ridiculous. So therefore, one should strive for what he has not achieved, namely Krishna consciousness, which is the real treasure. So that's one theme that comes up. Now, Prahlāda himself, well, yesterday in Maharaj's class, when he mentioned about the, I think it was in the verses that the mirage, how this material happiness is like a mirage, right? You strive for it, you get it, there's some taste, but it's gone. And you know, my favorite verse, you all know this verse probably by heart, Yehi sangs bhajita bhoga dukkha yona evate adyandabandhan nate shuramate buddha. Intelligent persons, Buddhas, Krishna says right in the 5th chapter, 22nd verse of the Bhagavad Gita, don't strive, don't take part in the pleasures that come from the senses, you know, interacting with their sense objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of all misery and have a beginning and an end. That's part of the misery, that it ends, you know. And therefore the wise don't delight in them. So where does that leave us? You know, and how am I going to enjoy? That's the whole point of Krishna consciousness. And that's why in Krishna consciousness, according as practiced and taught by Lord Chaitanya and his followers, from the very beginning you can taste some spiritual pleasure. You just join the kirtan and you get enwrapped in it, and suddenly you're dancing, you're chanting, and that's spiritual pleasure. Of course, you're not pure when the kirtan stops. You have so many things to do. Your mind may wander, and so forth. That's one thing. But the point is, you can get a taste from the beginning in the kirtan and the prasadam, even without understanding any philosophy. And this was Lord Chaitanya's means of preaching. When he went to South India, he wasn't giving big lectures there. He was on the road chanting, and it was so attractive. People were chanting with him. And of course, then he arranged to have big feasts and so forth. That's another instance of it. Now, Prahlāda Maharaj himself, in his prayers, when Maharaj was speaking, because he's talking about the mirage, one of the words for a mirage is a mriga-trishna. Does anyone know why? Can you figure it out? A mriga is a deer. It's an animal in general, but it's oftentimes just a deer. Trishna, that which the deer thirsts after. You see? The deer will go after because it doesn't know any better. So, oh, there's nice water there, I'm thirsty. It runs after it. It's not there. It doesn't die in the desert, So there's a verse, Prahlāda, in one of his prayers to Shringadev, chapter 9. Kutrashisha shuti sukha mrigatushni rupa kvedam kaleva damasheshura jamviroha Nirvidyate natu jano tadapiti vidvan kamalalam madolavaishamayang dorapai. It's a very instructive verse. So Kutrashi said, what use are these material desires, aspirations? Asha, we sing every morning with the Tulsi prayer. Asha is to long after something, to desire something. So Kuta Ashisha is longing after, what's the point of it? This material desire. It has the nature of a mirage. Mrigatrishni Rupa. And what is this body really? Kvedam Kalevaram, a Sheshura Jambiro, a repository of all kinds of diseases. You see? But then he says something very interesting. He says, Nirvidyate natu janota tapiti vidvan. Even a wise person who may know this philosophy or something and realizes the negative effects of over sense gratification, still, natu janota tapiti vidvan. They do not nirvidyate, give it up. This pursuit of sense gratification of all kinds of varieties, especially if you have money. Because they're too busy trying to extinguish the blazing fire of lust with the little drops of sense gratification. In other words, if you have no inkling, and you're completely covered over, and you have no inkling of the higher pleasure that's available, and that's really much more intense and much more long-lasting and real in spiritual life, then you'll continue to try to enjoy varieties of sense gratification. You may give one up. You said, okay, I used to be an alcoholic, no more of that, But you get into something else, and it's hopeless. And that comes in also in Prahlad's teachings to his father, which we may have forgotten by now. It's been quite a few chapters. But those teachings are very often quoted. So you may remember there's various interactions Prahlad has with Hiranyakashipu, and the father is wanting to see, has he been reformed? What's he thinking of now? What do they teach him? So each time it happens, Prahlad has invaluable instructions, like Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasam, that verse. But this one, his father said, how do you become Krishna conscious afterwards? So his answer is basically, don't worry, father, you'll never become Krishna conscious. Matirna Krishna padatak svatova mito bipadyete griha vatanam adanta gobhir vishatam tamisram punak punash charvita charvananam. Who knows what that last line is about? Yeah, again and again, chewing the chew. So he's describing, he says, don't worry, father, you'll never get. Matirna Krishna padatak svatova. Mito vipadya grihabatanam, those who are completely dedicated and know nothing else and taken a vow virtually of trying to enjoy family life. Mito abhipadyate grihabatanam. Whether they come together with others or they do it on their own, you see, if they're totally committed to materialistic family life, they can never really place their mind on Krishna. It may do a little bit, but it won't be serious. Their real commitment is to family life, materialistic family life. We have an adanta gobh here. Adanta go, uncontrolled senses. This is the big thing. Uncontrolled. They're under the sway of the senses. The mind is controlled by the senses. Krishna describes in the 3rd chapter. That's the problem. That's what forces you to do things that intellectually are wrong for you. But I can't help myself. One more drink. It's horrible. So adan vishatam tamisram, they enter more and more into darkness with this process of punak charvita charvanam, again and again chewing the chew, and that goes over lifetimes. You see. And then the next verse probably quote all the time. Nate, they, not. Nate vidu svartakatim Vishnu. Svartam. Svartakatim, svartam, the same I think. They don't know that the real goal of the soul is Vishnu. Nate vidu. They don't know. And so what do? Vishnu durashayaye bahirarta manada. Their minds are absorbed in these external goals of trying to achieve this, get this job, get this girl, whatever, Vishnu durashaya, which is like probably hope against hope, because ashaya means hope. This is where asha comes in. Durashaya ye bahirartamanina. Bahir means external goals, not the svarta, the goal of the soul, but the goals of the senses, the goals of the mind, the goals of someone else who's influencing you. All of this external goals, and go on life after life with it. Durashya ye bahirarta, not svarta, bahirarta manina, Andar yatandar. And you're under the influence of all kinds of blind people who are teaching you this. You're beginning with your parents, your teachers, pastor who's into prosperity theology, which is a complete perversion of religion. So, andaya tandaya upe niyamate pishatantra murada, and everybody remains completely tightly bound up with in material life. The teachers and those who were taught. So what's the third verse? Does anyone know the third verse? The solution to the problem? It says, so how can one become Krishna conscious? How it goes, Naisham matistava rurukam anging spashatyanata pagamo yarata mahiya sampararajobhishekam nishkinchananam navaniti yavat. So in this verse it says, Naisham matis tava rurukam anging spashatyanata pagamo yarata. So until, you see, then the second half of the verse. And this way, he's describing the previous verses, one cannot attain. It's very interesting turn of phrase. Urukramanging spishati, to touch the lotus feet of Urukama, of Krishna, with your mind. You can't place your mind on it. That was the first verse, right? Urukramanging spishat anarta apagamo yadarta. Which the touch of that, in other words, being able to place your mind, is the great goal of getting rid of all the anartas. An arta goal of getting rid of your anartas. You see? Anarta vashabam yadarta. So what's the solution? Second half of the verse. Nishkinchanadam nabanita yavat mahiyasam padarajobhishekam. You have to take a bath in the foot dust of the pure devotee who has no sense of proprietorship. Just the opposite to Hiranyakashipu, who tries to own everything, right? I'm a master of the universe, I'm going to get all the gold. Just the opposite. The demons are just the opposite. But the great devotees, they know the beginning thing. Ishavashimidam sarvam, Krishna owns everything. So everything is meant for his service, including my senses, my whatever I may have. See, and as soon as you start living like that, immediately a great burden lifts from you. This burden of trying to get this sense gratification, competing with this one, and which involves all kinds of emotions like disappointment, depression, anger, frustration, right? Akamesha, Krodesha, Rajogana, Samadha, Mahashano, Mahapama, Vidyanam, Vaidinam. Here's your enemy, Arjun. Not so much those across the way, but it's lust, which turns into wrath. Do you know what wrath is, Sureshwar? Wrath. Very intense anger. You see? You're very angry. You're angry at those who are stopping you from enjoying. And then you become angry yourself, and that's what's called depression. Oh, I'm a loser. That's back. So this is all the result. So once you give that up, and nishkinchanat, you bathe in the foot dust, means that you surrender. And that means that you listen, you hear. And what is the value of that? 11th canto, famous verse. Tato duk sangam utsrija satsu sajjeta buddhiman. Santa eva sachindanti mano vyasanga muktabi. Now this mano vyasangam is a very interesting word. Mano vi, a sangha. You see? So vi is an intensifier, right? And that means very great attachments in the mind that you've built up over lifetimes. They're in there, you see? But if you actually associate with it and surrender to a pure devotee, who's a preacher, then with his words, he can cut out those desires, and you stop desiring them because you're surrendered. It means that you want to please him. Now this is an essential thing to do, and then by that, just like Arjun was, he had all this argument because why he can't fight, right? There's my beloved teacher and my beloved grandfather figure, Bhishma, And there's one verse, I think it's in the first chapter, maybe beginning of the second chapter, where he's looking over the two armies. And he's seeing not only all his friends on his own side, but he sees, besides Bhishma and Drona, all kinds of friends and relatives and on the other side. You see? So both sides. And he's saying, if I fight this battle, then I'll just be the cause of,
my dear friends. And whatever I gain, whatever I win, it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love, right? So what's the advantage? In other words, where's the pleasure in that? Let me go off to the forest. I'd rather just, try to just beg my way. So that's his final perception. Then he says, Govinda, I shall not fight, and he sits down on the cart. You see, and but the book doesn't end there. So so then after a few verses, then he surrenders. Skarpanya dosho bhatat svabhava pritchami tvam dharma samudha cheta mahis deja nikshayat sam nishitam bruhitan me shishyasteham shadiman tvam papannam. Karpanya, kripana, miserly weakness. Upahata svabhava has taken away my real nature. I've lost my nature as a Kshatriya. That was what Krishna was saying. This doesn't become you. This is anaryan. Anaryan means those who know the spiritual values of life. And that's not what you're talking about. Everything you're talking about is material. So then what does he say? So he said, I've lost my real nature. Karpan in the present, Pritchami tvam dharma samudha cheta. I don't know what my real dharma is. This is a very serious thing in the Vedic culture. Everything is based on a dharma. He feels I'm being a dharmic here, so please help me. So yakshraya yaksan nishitam, please tell me for sure how I can achieve, not for me only, but for everyone, shreya, the ultimate good fortune. Yakshraya yaksan nishtitam. For sure, Shishyasteham. Now I've taken the role of your disciple, not your friend. Friend to friend, Barbara makes the point that you can go on forever, you never get to it. Because you're friends. It means that you've had so many debates before. It doesn't get anywhere. But the disciple and guru, then you're accepting the guru who is qualified to teach you, and you have to obey. You accept, okay, I was wrong. That's the whole idea. So, Shadiman tvam papannam, I surrender unto you, please instruct me. And then the whole thing changes. And what does Krishna do? Chastises him. Before he was encouraging, speaking friend to friend. Ashochanam vashochatram pragyavaram shabachase gadasuma gadasum nanu shochanti pandit. You're speaking learned words, but you're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief, the physical body. You see? And those who are wise never speak that way. So these are the sharp words from the guru, who can reform, can cut out these material desires. So ultimately, of course, it works, and Arjuna surrenders Karashevachan, and I will do as you say at the end of the Gita. And the great advantage is we get to hear Krishna speak the Gita. We listen in, and it can also help us. So this is a central theme in our Shastra, convincing one that all of your efforts to enjoy independently are self-defeating. You're defeating the real self, the soul. You're burying the soul in this fog of forgetfulness, you see? And you're being controlled by your mind, your materialistic mind, your karma, you see, your environment and your bad association. And you're helpless, life after life. And it's not all human lives. It's mostly subhuman lives, and there you can't learn anything. You just have to go through. And if you really want to get inspired, then read the fifth canto, because these sins that are so common, drinking, then you have to drink a bottle of or a jug of molten lead or something, and if too much illicit sex, then you can enjoy embracing for how many years, a red hot statue of the opposite sex, and you can't let go because you're tied up. How would you like that? It's real. Now it's not for eternity, but do you really want to go through that? What for? Is it worth it? Whereas on the other hand, if you take up Krishna consciousness, even if you don't succeed, you'll get another human life. You're not going to hell. You get, just being born and getting old age, and it'd be still suffering, but you'll be on your way back to guided. So a rational person who looks, logically at it is, well, obviously, yes, let me take it up, and especially in this age when it's so easy, when we've given the blessing, just chant Hare Krishna. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday or 2 minutes ago. Just begin chanting, associating with devotees, Take this book, associate with the pure devotee, and try to reform, disassociate, come around, the beginning. And this is how people become reformed and become fortunate. The seed is planted, you see. And so this Python man, he's very wise in that. But the thing is, I'm just hoping he gets up and starts dancing and chanting the Hare Krishna. I don't know if he's going to do that. But the point is, he's like Babaji, as Maharaj says, he's just living alone. And he's exemplifying this surrender, whatever Krishna provides. This is the two aspects of the surrender, Rakshashasiddhi Vishagopta Devaranang Tata, is that to be very confident Krishna will protect and maintain. And that he'll maintain, and that's what he's personifying that. That's a very advanced platform. So this is an important lesson. But I just wanted to share with you these other points in the Bhagavatam. It comes up again and again. And oh my God, we had in the 5th canto. I don't know how many of you were here when we read the 5th canto. But the forest of enjoyment, after I think it's part of Jadabard's teachings, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just describing this material world, and somebody did, and how it's the forest of, quote, enjoyment, material enjoyment, and it's just suffering and confusion and depression and difficulty. So why stay here? Because we think that's all there is. But that's the great thing. Prabhupada said, no, it's not all there is. There's a whole world. There's a spiritual world. This is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. And that means that what looks like fun is actually your worst enemy. There's a line in the Bhagavad Gita, I forget what purported in, where it said, the happiness of sense gratification that you feel is actually your worst enemy. Because it induces, there's something, let me do it again, and then you die desiring it and do it again, and you're stuck, you see. So this is one of the great lessons, and this Prahlad Maharaj, he's now listening, but he himself is one of the preachers of this philosophy, obviously. And he is a Mahajan. So we can relish this. I think it's I think it's going to go on a few more verses. But that's about what I have to say on this. If there's any discussion or question.
Hare Krishna.
You are there. You didn't want to chant the verse?
I was attending Mother Nidra's Srimad Bhagavatam class, ISKCON Denver.
Okay, then that's that. I apologize. But yes, you have a question, Vijay?
Yes, I do. May I?
Sure.
But if I can wait if a temple room devotee would like to go first.
Well, no one seems to have their hand up. Maybe your question will inspire more questions.
Yes.
Oh, you have something?
I
do, but he can go first.
Oh, we're ready.
Okay, so if you take oh my God, the synonyms. There's a synonym Goram.
Oh, in the synonym Goram, very fearful. Due to continuous, yes.
Can you give me the English translation, please?
Due to continuous acceptance of birth and death.
Yes. So based on this synonym, my question is, how do you explain that?
Well, it seems self-evident, because this being in the material world and having a material body, of course, if you're an animal, you may not know, but in the human form, you're aware that, it doesn't take very long to realize that there are great sufferings in this world. Even if you're not going through the suffering, you may know about others. And the passage of time is going to bring, yes, there'll be some happiness there, but it's going to be suffering, and you're going to be leading toward death. I remember when I was a kid, and the first person who I knew had died, and it was my grandmother, we used to go visit her every couple of weeks. She lived in the Bronx, we lived on Long Island. And she was a very nice lady. you know. She was good with math, and my brother inherited that. I inherited some of it. And she would do little puzzles with my brother, you know, like that. So there was some affection. I was just a kid, maybe 8 years old, 9 years old at the time. And then I heard that, oh, my grandma has died, she had stomach cancer, this and that, you know. And I was just, it was a shock, because no one else had, you know, the whole idea of death didn't come out. And then, of course, then I forgot after a while, because that happens to old people, not to young people like me. You know, I mean, so that's really the illusion, isn't it? Is that, oh, it's like, you know, I'm fine, we're good, you know, let's go to the bar. And but if you're a little bit thoughtful, and you come in contact with the Bhagavad Gita, or, you know, anybody in the Hare Krishnas, then you'll understand, no, this is really what makes the effort to enjoy material life absurd. Because it's all just like a mirage, right? This is where we started, Mrigatrishni. It looks like it's there, and this verse, Kutra Shruti Sukha. Shruti Sukha means so much happened, it's just in hearing about it. In other words, I give the example, someone lives in the Midwest, you know, and with 3 kids and his wife, you know, and he's saving up to go to Disneyland, okay, for years. And finally he's got the RV, and he's got the exorbitant money for the tickets, and everything's all right, and he goes, you know, and of course along the way the kids are screaming, you know, and it's hard to get, but okay, they get there, you know, they stand and they go through the rides and they do the thing like that, and they take all these videos, you know, and then it's over, and they come back, there's a hole in their bank account, but they did it, you know, and they came and they've got the memories, you know, which are like exactly like mirages, and then after a while it's gone, it's just a faint memory in the background. And so what happened? Well, what you did is you planted so many more material desires that'll bring you back. That they don't know. That sense gratification, this is the worst part of it, is that it then plants a seed of desire in your subtle body that'll bring you back to do it again. Unless you burn all those seeds by the process of devotional service. So that's what's so ghoram, is so very fearful of birth and death. You don't know what your birth is going to be if you have no assets in Krishna consciousness or anything. You may in this stage, you may very likely lose the human form of life, which Krishna describes in the 2nd chapter, in that same verse, which means the most fearful danger, not the most dangerous fear, but the most fearful danger. And whenever Prabhupada explained that verse, he always told how it'll save you, even a little conscious Krishna consciousness will save you from the greatest danger. And what is that greatest danger? To lose the human form of life. And if you do that, then you lose your chance during that life and subsequent animal births to hear about Krishna, to take up Krishna consciousness. So this is all a great fearful situation. And just like, I mean, just practically speaking, what is the situation now? I mean, we're pretty fortunate here in San Diego. We had that fake hurricane, do you remember? Oh, be careful, that hurricane. Because the hurricane hit Hawaii and they didn't give them enough warning, you know? So they overwarned here. Says, okay, it's coming. And it came, and I was in my apartment. I said, oh, I better stay in my apartment. And they start pouring and wind, you know? So I said, and I looked out the window, and there was hardly a little drizzle and no wind. Okay, where's the hurricane, you know? I wasn't praying for it, but I was thinking, it's a false alarm. So we're fortunate here. But it just had a big one in Florida. My friend Indra was in Alachua, and he was worried it was going to really, you know, blast him. But fortunately it didn't. But more than 50 people died, huge amount of damage, you know. So this is what this material world is like. You know, you're going along and suddenly, oh my God, what happened? I went to the doctor and he said, I have cancer? Oh, that can't be, you know, oh my God. You know, things like that happen all the time. So that's what's fearful, that's what's ghoram, for those who are logical. Because otherwise, material life is just trying to paint these things away. Forget. Let me forget all the things. My friend died, yeah, but that was 6 years ago, okay. You know, and just try to enjoy now, you see? And that's Maya's trick, to make you forget. But Krishna consciousness means to remember, to be reminded of what the reality is. And that there's no use trying to enjoy the senses, and it's not just no use, but it's positively like poison. So what's the alternative? Where's the enjoyment? Krishna consciousness. Hearing and chanting about Krishna, serving, associating with devotees, getting the higher taste. When you get that higher taste, then you can give up the lower taste. So that's the meaning. This word Gauram is very, it means fearful and very horrible and frightening. We should be very reluctant to prolong our time in this material world. And then luckily the process is workable by all of us. I mean, I wasn't a great yogi. I wasn't born into a Brahmin family. And where's Ramapati? You are from birth. Krishna consciousness. Fortunate soul. So that's the idea behind Gauram. I think it is very fearful. We should be afraid of Maya. Even Prahlad was afraid of Maya. I remember the verses. Is that okay, Vijay?
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, if I may, I liked it when you mentioned that we don't know we don't know about our next birth.
Yes, it's a mystery. That's the great thing about Krishna consciousness. You know that if you try even a little bit, what to speak of getting serious, that you'll be a human being and you'll be able to practice Krishna consciousness. So that's really the key, and it's just like invaluable. Anybody who goes and looks at the book, even if they don't buy it, they're blessed. What to speak of if they get a book and read it, So all the preaching and the chanting and the maintaining the temple is very important for preaching. And the deities, the pujaris, they're also very important for the preaching of it. People become attracted to see the beauty of the Lord. All right, any other discussion? Bhakti Chad.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Thank you for the enlivening lecture. So you mentioned that two of the main components of surrendering to Krishna is that he will protect and maintain us.
Yeah.
What about surrendering to the will of Krishna and trying to please Krishna? Right?
Yeah, that's the beginning. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya bharjanam. To accept things that are favorable for Krishna consciousness, meaning that will please him, and to give up those things that won't please him. Now, of course, all of this comes from instructions of Krishna, usually through the guru and so forth. You have to learn that. So that's where that's essential. And then the next one is rakshasati vishwaso gopadripadanantata. And atmanikshepa karpani. What's the next one? Shadvadas Sharanagati. Atmanikshepa means to be to have no interest separate from the Lord, Manikshepa karpanya, and to remain very meek and humble. So, yeah, and it all starts with anukulyasya sankalpa. Anukulyasya sankalpa. In other words, we don't say you have to give up this, in this beginning. You don't say that. Here's something favorable. Come to the kirtan and join us in the kirtan. You see? You don't have to give anything up. Just add this. So that's favorable. And then gradually, this is unfavorable. Okay. And by doing enough of the favorable things like chanting and associating, you get the spiritual strength to give up the other things that you have in your life that are impediments. So that's how it works. But that for anything, you want to become an Olympic sprinter, accept the things that are favorable, all of those exercises, and give up the other things, whatever, eating too much rich food, getting too fat, you got to lose your weight, whatever it is. But what to speak of Krishna consciousness? It's a discipline. It is a process, sadhana, to get to the sadhya. And sadhana means do this, do this, give up. That's what Nectar of Instruction is all about. Okay, Veera Chandra.
Krishna, thank you for the class.
Hare Krishna.
So elaborately explanations, and I have one question what I want to ask. You mentioned about Charanamrita, from saint persons. We should sprinkle our head.
Yes, this
I want to. It is known that in Vedas how to say, there are some levels of understanding different statements, and also this statement, please explain different levels, because of how I understand not only this like physical water.
It's indicative of something else. What that means is to utterly surrender, to pure devotee. The whole point is, how are we going to get the strength, and the knowledge. Knowledge is also important for vairagya, right? They go together, vairagya vidya. And so that the spiritual master, when you surrender, then the sharp words, you're ready to accept those sharp words. Remember that I quoted that verse at the beginning. Santa evasya chindandi monovyasanga muktabi. With the sharp sword of his words, he'll cut out those very impacted material desires in your heart, because you're appreciating and you've surrendered to this soul, and that's exactly the beginning of Arjuna's turn in the Bhagavad Gita. He accepted Krishna as a spiritual master, and so you have to accept those words. And you're in an environment, and so that where everyone is doing it, and so you get the strength to do it, to begin and do that. You see, so that's the idea. Is that that bathing is in the suttas is symbolic. It means you're surrendering. When you take the dust of someone, put it on your head, that means, oh, I'm subordinate to you. That's the whole point. It's not just a ritual. So that's the idea, and then you can begin to work toward your svarta, your actual goal of the soul. Isn't all these things. Otherwise, natevidu svartagatim, you'll never even know that Vishnu was the goal of your life. So the whole thing begins with surrender, first exposure, association with the pure devotee, or with devotees who are serving the pure devotee. In other words, some kind of association you come into where you hear these things, and it affects you. And then there's two things in your heart. I got my old habits and everything, but now I know that they're not good for me. Now I know why I'm suffering. So maybe I should try this. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And the mantra is so powerful. It gives you an immediate relief. If you really pay attention, anyone will benefit that they can then build on, because it's so powerful.